Good morning. My name is Chuck Riley. I'm the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs here in the College of Engineering and Computer Science at UCF. And it's my privilege to introduce our speaker, Mr. Guillermo Novo, for our leadership seminar this morning. He's responsible for the unit's profit and loss, directs the global business strategy, and leads the Dow Coating Materials leadership team. Following Dow's acquisition of Rome Haas in April 2009, Mr. Novo was appointed Global Business Director for polypropylene and licensing business. In October 2009, he took on the role of Vice President of Dow Polyurethanes, a global business group that includes the propylene oxide and propylene glycol, isocyanates, and polyols businesses. Mr. Novo assumed that his current role in July 2010. He's been working on pronouncing his job. Mr. Novo began his career in 1986 at the Rome Haas Company in Latin America. After serving in a range of account and sales manager positions in the region, he took on various leadership roles, including market manager for construction products in North America, country manager for Rome and Haas operations in Indonesia, and the Asia-Pacific regional business manager for specialty polymers. In 1998, Mr. Novo was named Vice President and Regional Director for Latin America, as well as a member of the Rome and Haas Leadership Council. In 2002, he moved to Philadelphia and became Vice President for the Consumer and Industrial Specialties business, and in 2006, he became Vice President for the Process Chemicals and Biocides business. While with Rome and Haas, in addition to his business responsibilities, Mr. Novo led the company's corporate-wide diversity efforts. He is a member of the Board of Directors for the United Way of Southeast Pennsylvania, and he previously served as the President of the United Way in Brazil. Mr. Novo earned his Bachelor of Science degree in Engineering from the University of Central Florida. He serves on our Dean's Advisory Board and has been recognized as a distinguished alumnus by the university. He also holds a Master's in Business Administration from the University of Michigan. He resides in Chestnut Hill, Pennsylvania. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Guillermo Novo.
Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today. You heard a lot of interesting titles. Sounds very technical. I'm not a chemical engineer, as you can imagine. I graduated from UCF from industrial engineering, with an industrial engineering degree. Went on to get my MBA, and then I pursued pretty much an international career with Rome and Haas, and now with Dow Chemical. I'm going to try to keep my presentation pretty open, so as you have questions, I'd like to make sure that I'm addressing the areas of interest for all of you. But I think I have an interesting perspective on business and on the world because of the opportunities that I've had throughout my career. Well, let me start first with the end of the presentation, and I'll work back to the topic of critical thinking and why it's so important in leadership and I think in your career. But let me first start by congratulating all of you. You've all taken a very important first step, and that's choosing a career and education in the sciences, and more specifically in engineering. I can guarantee you that this is a very important step that will benefit your career and your life for many years to come. At least it has in my career, because it prepares you for a lot of a life of learning and for learning to think. And that's I think one of the most important things that you're going to get out of your engineering career. It's hard to say, hey, be positive about the future, and there's a lot of great things to study engineering in today's world. All you hear about is negative things. The economy's tough, there's no jobs, unemployment, the financial markets. But as you listen to my talk, forget about that. The world changes all the time. Don't focus on the negative. Focus on the opportunities. When I was here in the early 80s, I graduated in 1984. If I put myself in your seat, that was a time that we were coming out of an inflationary environment. High interest rates were 19%, 17%. Unemployment was about 9%, similar to what it was now. We had the Iran situation, and the Shah of Iran getting kicked out. So a lot of uncertainty and global instability. So I probably had the same perspective of the world that you did, and everything changed. Fortunately or unfortunately, during my career, I've probably lived through every crisis that has happened in the last 3 decades. And the one thing that I learned was that things always get better. So what you have to focus on right now is on what you can control, how you can prepare yourself for the future, how you can position yourself so that as opportunities come up in life, that you're well positioned to take advantage of those opportunities. And those opportunities are all around you. If any of you have seen the movie with Al Pacino on any given Sunday on football, he gives a speech when they're in the game, typical movie, halftime, they're behind and they have to come back. And he talks about the game of inches. That, games are won and lost by every inch and how you have to fight for every inch. Inches are opportunities. And as he says in his speech, they're all around us every day. And what we need to do is find them and make sure that we're capitalizing through those opportunities. Why is this important? My career, I've been, as Chuck said, around the world. I've moved, I'm 49 years old. I've moved around 18 times. And that lifetime of change has been probably the key success driver in my life, in my journey, both professionally and personally. It's given me the opportunity to experience new things and to learn. And what I'm here to share with you about critical thinking, you can get it from a perspective of change and change in a global environment. So I hope my comments are useful to you and to your career. And again, feel free to ask any questions throughout the presentation. Change, you can't stop it. It's all around us, all the time. What's happening in today's world, it's moving faster and faster. When I was in school here, we were just getting, first few years, we still had the mainframe computers with the cards that you would type in, and that was like the big thing. So if you ever wanted to drop your cards, or it was a mess. We started getting PCs. When I was getting my MBA, we had just getting Word-type documents in your PCs, and Lotus 123, which is a type of Excel, radically changed your ability to process information. In 92, I got my first laptop at work. In 96, I got my first cell phone. Today, I have a cell phone, I have an iPad, I have computers, I have TV. I am so connected on information that I would have never imagined the world that I live in today. Some of you take it for granted because it's what you're seeing. I can guarantee you, in 5 years and 10 years, you'll be amazed with what you have today. But there is a price you pay for that, and it's speed and the quantity of information that you get. So how to go through all that information and develop your thinking is absolutely critical to success in business or in any activity that you do today. And why is critical thinking important in our careers and in our lives? Because with such a bombardment of information, things are not always what they seem to be. In my world, competition is a big thing. We're always on top of who our competitors are, who they are. And the one thing that we've learned is that they never are who you really think they are. There's always a change. And you need to learn how to think through situations to identify the competition for the situation. So I'll give you 2 examples. So you know that, we're living in an exponential times. Today, the number of text messages that we receive every day exceed the total population of this planet. Think about how much information that is. There are 540,000 words in the English language today. That's 5 times as many words as in the times of Shakespeare. 3,000 books are published every day. And if you look at a week's worth of the New York Times, contains more information than an entire lifetime, or what a person would see in an entire lifetime in the 18th century. And that's a lot of information that we're getting today. I would say it's not all information, it's a lot of noise that we get in our day. This is a fact I can't even comprehend that we estimate that 40 hexabytes, I don't even know what a hexabyte is, it's so much information, of unique information is generated every year across the planet. That's more than was generated in the past 5,000 years. A lot. So all these slides are just to say there's a lot of information out there. And the amount of information that we're generating is doubling every year. So what does this mean to a student? To all of you, or a business, but specifically to students? Is that half of what you learn in the first year of study, it's going to be irrelevant by the time you graduate. So information will change, the amount of information is going to change, and the theories, the data is going to change. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, in this environment, what do we need to do? And the most important thing is learning to be a critical thinker. Learning how to manage through all that information, all that data, to gather information that you make decisions on. So what is the important part of critical thinking? You have to learn to just wade through all that data, to understand what's information, what's noise. And this is probably the biggest thing that you're getting in your education right now. How many of you have been in classes that you say, why am I studying this subject? I'll never use it. A lot. I went through my mind. Well, you're learning how to learn. You're learning how to think, how to structure your thinking. So you won't use the material, but you will learn. What your teachers are teaching you is learning how to think, how to structure, how to look at problems, analyze them, synthesize them, and make decisions. The problems change, the challenges change, but the way you attack those problems don't change. So a lot of fundamentals there. So analyzing, synthesizing, evaluating are very important, and summarizing. So SASE, if you remember, is a critical part of success as a leader, as a businessman, and frankly, in almost any career. If you want to look at the military, in the sciences, obviously in business, everybody needs to do this today. What I do, I'm sort of working with organizations all over the world. I cannot manage all the information that I get. And what my boss and his boss expect from me is that I can synthesize, I can focus on what are the key issues that we need to address, and make sure that the rest of the organization is really driving those activities. So summarizing, summarizing is probably the first two items. Summarizing and analysis are probably one of the critical things that you're going to get out of your education right now. These are the tools, the basic tools. If you look at synthesis and evaluation, you get some of those tools here, but those really come out of experience. So exposing yourself to new ideas, to new territories, to new people is extremely important, so that you can turn that data after you've analyzed it, after you understand what the issues are, to really focus in on what's important. I'm sure many of you have met in your lives people that just get it. They're able to see a situation and hone in on what's important, make decisions, and drive. These are people that are very well structured in their thinking. They can get all the data, analyze it quickly, understand what are the key issues, and then use the experiences that they've had to make some quick choices. That, in my career, has probably been one of the biggest issues, that I have had an opportunity. I've been very fortunate with the companies that I've worked with, that early on in my career, I was able to move around countries. They gave me positions of a lot of responsibility. Exposures, crisis, tough times is probably where you learn the most. And through those experiences, you can make those types of decisions as the situations arrive. So let me talk a little bit about critical thinking in my world. And my world is a technology world. Although we Dow Chemical, and you talk about coatings, you've heard some of those titles of businesses, they sound very technical. The bottom line is we're in the innovation business. So if we're designing new products, new materials for paints, for your house, for an aircraft carrier, for aerospace, a rocket, an airplane, or if we're designing materials for cosmetics, for hair care systems. All of this is about innovation and applying invention to develop innovation. So one of the important points is it's important to separate what's invention versus what's innovation. And that's where I think a lot of the critical thinking, connecting the dots, is very important. Innovation is the spark. It's the core science. It's the core areas where you invent something. And in our company and many companies, we have thousands of innovations that are sitting on the shelf but aren't bringing a lot of value to companies or to the world in many cases. The ones that are really the magic for us is when we can create innovation. And that is being able to look at all these inventions, putting together the big picture that we can innovate and bring value. So a good example of this is, think about Apple computers. Everybody, how many of you have an Apple? Something, an iPod, iPad, a phone, they're in everything. What have they invented? Not a lot. What have they innovated? A lot. Putting together a lot of other people's innovations, some of their own too. Visualizing a world, the need, the core value of what their products, their services bring together as a package has transformed the industry. It's not about the iPod or the Apple Mac or the iPad or the iTunes individually. It's the whole thing put together that is their innovation. And look at how it's transformed the world. Who is their competitor? Is it another computer company? Is it an entertainment company? Is it Amazon? It's not obvious. And that's the world that they're living in, using their critical thinking, their skills, and probably John is probably one of the masters at, is understanding what's important, focusing the organization on it, and really bringing a level of innovation that's been unheard of in many fields. And for us, that's the part, connecting science and our customers to create value. That's what we do. That's where I spend my time, my critical thinking, in trying to deliver that kind of value. But what does that mean for all of you as we look at innovation, critical thinking? First, you need to decide what you want to do in life. So where do you fit in this world? Are you the scientist that's going to be analyzing the world as it is, understanding the fundamentals? Key part of the critical thinking, analyzing, synthesizing a lot of the issues that we want to do. Do you want to be the engineer? And in engineering, I would say this is one of the parts of critical thinking, that you put all of these things that are being developed, all these ideas, and you start visualizing new things. New things. How do I apply some of the new science into new processes, new designs, new technology? Or do you want to be like Apple, Steve Jobs, the technologist that can wrap everything together and really bring something totally new to society and to the world? These are choices that all of you have to make. You can do one of them, you can do all of them. So that's a big part, I think, of the education that you're getting, and the experiences that you need to get as you move through your career. But what's important is that you move forward. In this case, I'm talking about industry, but it could be government, it could be social. There's a lot of different interests in the world that each one of you has to choose. And not be afraid as you use your critical thinking, as you decide what's important, to go against the current when you have to. And again, I'll use the Apple example and a lot of other companies, people that have a vision and bring that level of innovation to a very high degree, because they are able to swim against the current, because they're very clear in their analysis, they're very clear in their value proposition of what's going to create value in the industry moving forward. So this is, as much as I wanted to talk a little bit of innovation and at least a little perspective on the global world that we live in, rather than me talking a little bit more on specifics in this area, I'd rather open it up if you guys have specific questions about this, about doing business in the global world. Be happy to address some of your issues and concerns.
Okay. You mentioned that you lived in 7 different countries, and particularly during tough economic times. What were the reasons for your move? Were they economically driven? Were they customer relation driven? Or what were the reasons for the moving?
It was more, my personal interest was international business. My parents are Cuban American. So they left Cuba with nothing, basically. There were suitcases. And my father pursued an international career. In my family were 5 kids, all born in different countries. So I continued with that lifestyle, if you want. I have 2 daughters, one born in Brazil, the other one in Singapore. So I've been also moving around a lot, and it's something that I've really enjoyed. It's really given me a lot of opportunity. What's interesting also is that I started doing that before. I've been doing the global thing all my life. That's the only life I know, actually. And it's been just a very interesting ride to see how the world has changed through globalization. It's been, there's hard times personally in moving so much, but there's a lot of rewards that come with that.
How did you position yourself in the space where you're at right now?
Being open for change. The greatest opportunity in my career was the ability to accept change, to embrace it, and I've always been able to leverage it to my advantage. So exposing myself to living in different parts of the world, different businesses, different companies, has been an enriching environment. I think what I've seen is people that are afraid of change. Let me just stay here. Let me live in the same town. Let me do what I do every day. You lose a lot of opportunity to learn, to experience the world. This is not a race. Life is not a race. The journey is life. Enjoying that journey, not the end game, but the whole process is absolutely critical. And learning and experiencing is a critical part. So an example, and you don't have to go far, is meeting new people. It's very easy. You talk about change. Hey, I like these sports. I like to do these activities. I have my friends that I enjoy doing that all the time with. That's my life. How many of you have, I'm sure people from many states, from many countries here, taking the time to meet people of a different culture? I mean, that for me is extremely important. You don't have to be their best friends, but get to know how people think in different parts of the world. Today, in my business, we have over 40 plants in 28 countries. Every day I'm on the phone. My teleconferences are with people from Russia, China, Brazil, California, Boston, Germany, all kinds of accents, all kinds of places, every day. And this is not unique to me. Almost every company, any global company, is doing that. Almost every local company is doing that because their customers are either global companies or international business that they're developing. The world has changed. And getting that exposure, that global exposure, that doesn't mean that you have to be traveling all the time, but getting that global exposure is absolutely critical to being successful in business today.
How many languages do you know?
3. I speak Spanish and Portuguese and English.
What would you say your biggest challenge was having, you gotten your degree in like the U.S. education system, what common things were you able to bring to the international market? What were the things that you had to change the most?
I think if I look at just from an education point of view, first, you're getting a first-rate quality education, if I can say so. And UCF is a fantastic school. When I left UCF, I went to Michigan to do my MBA. It was interesting, within an MBA degree, you have people from all kinds of disciplines and schools from across the country, and it was a pretty difficult program, very competitive program. And I can tell you, with the education I got here, I was not at any disadvantage versus people from MIT, from California, any major school around the world. I felt extremely well prepared from both the technical and from the critical thinking skills that I got from UCF and from an engineering degree. The rest, I think, what you bring to a company, a global environment, is your own experiences. I've been fortunate with Dow and with Roman Haas. I've worked a lot on diversity, in charge of diversity in a company. And diversity is not just about race or religion and all that. The fundamental about diversity is diversity of thinking. And you want diversity of thinking, you need to have people that look different than you, that like different food, that speak a different language. That's how you're going to get a diverse environment. So one of the things that you can bring to those environments is your own diversity of thinking, but also to engage in a constructive way a lot of other people so that you have a constructive communication and constructive teamwork environment.
When you were in countries with tough economic times, like Brazil with the hyperinflation, I don't know, I think you mentioned Japan in the 90s, is that correct?
Indonesia. I was in Southeast Asia.
Right. Indonesia in the 90s. When you had, how did you position yourself, and what particularly did you do to stay employed and moving forward in your career while the economy around you was declining?
Focus on what you can control. In tough times, and in good times, good times, the tide rises, everybody's doing good, you can get excited about that, enjoy it. But don't personalize. In good times, it's not necessarily that you're the one that's doing all these great things. You're on the ride like everybody else. And in bad times, the same thing. It's not your fault necessarily. It's just situations that you're in. So what you have to focus on is what you control. What can you do? So today, it's a tough environment. What are you doing to position yourself to manage through the crisis? But equally important, to position yourself for the opportunities. I believe in getting lucky. And the harder I work, the luckier I get. That's the issue of luck. If you're not present, if you don't show up to the party, you don't participate. And it's not just showing up, you got to show up prepared. It's a very competitive environment out there. And let me talk a little bit about the competitive environment out there. The world has changed. Now, this is not a U.S., European, Western world centric anymore. The developing economies are booming. Those markets are growing, so there are areas that we want to participate in from a business perspective because, like we were in the last 150 years as America, a booming area, some of these areas are now in their development phase. But their students, their professionals are also very hungry. You know, this is not about just, you know, government issues and trade issues. It's also about the mindset of individuals. If you live in China, or if you live in many of these countries and you see the hardships that people have, it's tough. You know, they didn't have computers, and we think we have it tough. I can tell you, with United Way, I did a lot of work with schools, elementary schools in Brazil. I mean, forget about a laptop or a computer or even a boat. You know, we were more concerned about, you know, the food for early ages. You know, are they going to have the nutrition that they need for their own mental development so that they can be productive individuals in the future in society? I was in China recently at a customer, and one of their engineers, young man, was telling me about just his life and how, you know, what he was doing. And he mentioned they work 6 days a week. Sunday's the only day off. And I was like, well, you know, how is that? Is it tough? You know, how do you manage family? He said, no, you have to understand. We're building a country here. We need to move forward. We have a responsibility. And this is what we have to do right now for my kids, for my wife, and for me to move forward. Nobody's forcing him. You know, it's not that companies are forcing people to work. People want to work. Why? Because they know it's a competitive environment, and they want to be well positioned for the future. You go to India, it's the same story. You go to Brazil, it's the same story. You go to Russia, it's the same story. You go to Czechoslovakia, North Africa, anywhere in the world. And if I can leave you with one message is, we need to develop that hunger here too. We've lost a little bit of that, and I think that's a hunger that nobody can give us. It has to come from within. And if you position yourselves for that, you're going to have a good career. Think about it. In the U.S., regardless of the economic times that it's difficult, there are not enough engineers. There are not enough engineers. There will be jobs. Now, you want those jobs? Are you willing to move? Oh, I like South Florida. Well, the job is maybe somewhere else. You need to be flexible. You need to expose yourself to those opportunities and be willing to change. If not, you're narrowing yourself to a very small world, and you make things difficult. And you close yourself to opportunities. And I think that's the key, opening yourself to those opportunities.
By being an executive of a vast corporation, conflicts arise every day. Minor, some big, some small. But usually the small ones come back to bite you in the butt the biggest time. So how do you choose which one to mitigate, and how do you do it completely with no repercussions?
Critical thinking. At the end of the day, you have to make choices. You don't have to be perfect. I mean, life is not about being perfect. It's about a series of better decisions. And you're continuously making decisions. So it's not an absolute utility. So I think you gotta just roll with the situation. If it's a minor thing that you just deal with, postpone, or if you really think it's a critical minor thing that can escalate to a much bigger problem that you want to avoid, then you focus on it. I think this is where critical thinking, you know, and as part of it, I was saying that the synthesis part is about experiences. That's what you got to learn through life. I think. And I can use examples in many of the countries going through a lot of the difficult times and the economic times. You learn. You know, the first time I didn't know, the second time, it's not that I'm a genius, it's I lived through it. Therefore, I have a few experiences that I can count on. And the third time, hey, I'm no smarter than I was before, but I've done it twice. So So you learn how to do it, and you learn to make those decisions. Don't, one of the things is everybody thinks, oh, so-and-so, it must be this brilliant leader, I'm never going to be able to do that. That's not the case. Most people are not that smart. I mean, there's a lot of smart people in the world. I've had the good fortune working with a lot of very smart people, but the real leaders that I've learned a lot from were the ones that were able to use that critical thinking, develop a lot of experiences, and make decisions.
You had mentioned that while a lot of things that we own here are commodities, several people in other nations, they don't even have, certain foods. That's things that they worry about. I wanted to know, how much do the companies internationally value reaching out to the community, reaching out to the other people?
It's a very important part of what we do. Both, I would say, both from a social point of view and from a business point of view. I think marrying the two, success is if you can marry both of these things from a corporate perspective. One, we have plants everywhere in the world. We are a member of the community where we operate, so we need to make sure that when we have plants, that the communities we're in, that we're operating safely, taking care of the environment, providing jobs, providing support, education, those kinds of things in the communities that we operate. And I've been very fortunate, both in my past company and this company, that have been older companies. I mean, my old company, when it was bought out, was 100 years old. Dow Chemicals, I think, is now 150 years old. So they have a lot of tradition, and the owners, for example, have put in a lot of trusts and things to do more work with the community. My old company, for example, the original owners put most of the company, most of their wealth into trusts, and they were very active. So I learned a lot through them. The other side is the business opportunity of doing good while making money at it. We're working a lot water, for example. It's a commodity we take for granted. Many parts of the world, there's not enough water. There's a lot where it's polluted or arsenic, contaminated. So we have a lot of businesses we've developed in purifying water, desalinating water, purifying water with low-cost mechanisms for poor parts of the world. In the agricultural field, food and water are going to be a big issue around the world. So how can we be more efficient in the production of food so that we can get costs lower so that it's more accessible to the broader population? I think the other part is education, and I think that's more of a social activity that is very important. And I'll tell you, I got involved personally with United Way on some of these things, and I would encourage you, participate in that. It does keep a perspective. It's not about money, it's not about, me. You have to keep a balance in life, and participating in the community, I think, really is an enriching, and again, it's part of the experience that you learn, that you will use in work, you will use in your personal life. Frankly, one of the reasons I got involved again with the university is I do appreciate getting involved with all of you. I hope that I can provide some value with my experiences, but I get a lot out of it too, of understanding what are your issues. It's not for free for me. I gain something too, both personally and professionally, because we're hiring a lot of people. What are your concerns? Your concerns are not the same that I had, that aren't the same that my parents had or their parents had. Things change, and I think this type of exchange is very enriching for everybody.
You said you guys are a global company. How do you guys deal with like different personalities, different cultures, and languages, and those kind of barriers and stuff like that?
I wish I had a formula for dealing with that. I think that's part of that engagement that you learn by doing. If you've never participated in groups that are very international, you're going to make mistakes, and there's friction that comes out. I think part of that is the learning process of engagement. So that's, again, I look at it from the diversity perspective, is how do we engage broader groups, how do we engage in dialogue. Part of the other area, I'm here talking about critical thinking. I'm sure other speakers are talking about other facets of leadership. But I would say communication. If I came here again to give another speech, I would probably focus on communication. In engineers, we focus on technology and all that. The other part of all that thinking and critical thinking, if you can't talk to people about it, if you can't convince them or them convince you on things, it's going to be in your head and it's not going to really be impactful. So the communication side of it is very, very important. So verbal communication, teamwork, dynamics, very, very important for leadership.
Got a question in the back?
What languages did you know for your whole life versus learning later? And considering you've been in the global economy, what has not knowing other languages held you back?
I would tell you, Spanish and English were I learned from very young. Portuguese I learned when I was in high school. So for me, it was later on. I think one of the biggest challenges all of you have that, my career was interesting because I sort of lived through a transition. It was easier, if you moved internationally in the past, it was easier to learn languages because there was no CNN or MTV or cable TV. When you moved to a country, you watched the local TV, you watched the local news, you heard the local radio. Today, it's convenient. I can be in Moscow or anywhere in the world. I turn on in my hotel the TV and it's all in English. So you do have to go the extra mile to learn a language. And I would highly recommend languages as a big issue, a big opportunity to learn, to establish communication with people. It's very different if you do it in their language than in your language. And that you go over, if you have opportunities to go study abroad for a period of time, live in the place, it's not just about a language or a culture that you're going to learn, live it. When you want to learn how to speak, well, if you can't order food, you're going to go hungry. I guarantee you will start speaking a little bit of whatever language because that's what you're going to have to do just to get through life. But today, it is harder to learn a language. But there's great programs. If you haven't looked at Rosetta Stone and a few other tools, there's some great languages that can get you started. But there's no replacement for going overseas and taking those opportunities that universities and other schools can offer you.
What does your company look for in a person when you're looking to hire?
First and foremost, integrity. And that is really a critical issue for us. I mean, there's a pecking order of things that you get. If you don't have that, you're not even in the game. I think it's the ability to think. What experiences? It's not about grades or what fields. Most of through a career, you can start as an engineer and then end up as a business person, a IT person, a supply chain, whatever area, you have to be able to learn. So we look at people that are adaptable, that can learn. And the ability to work with others is a very critical area.
And how do you find those qualities in someone just from, say, like a 30-minute interview with them?
I mean, from an interview, it's very hard. I mean, you can sort of screen people. Part of the first phase that we do is screen. So first, how you engage companies when they come interview. They say don't judge a book by a cover, but dress well in a sense, and not like expensive, but dress appropriately for whatever group you're talking to, and that could vary by group. But make sure that you're presenting yourself in the light of the things that they're looking for. Communication, talk about your experiences, very important, not just your education part. We're looking a lot at so what else have you done? People that have shown, for example, to study abroad. Hey, that tells you something about the person, their willingness to address change, their willingness to deal with change. Hey, I went and within a week I came back. Well, that's a person that's going to have a more difficult time. A person that was able to adapt. There's signals that we look for as we interview people. And the other thing is we try to get a diverse group of people to interview. So I might be looking at a person from one perspective, you might be looking at them from a different perspective, and then together we can get a better picture of the person. But it's not a perfect process. I mean, in a short period of time, it's very difficult to get a lifetime of judge somebody for a lifetime experience.
I'd like to ask you, in which country had the best experience, and you would like to go back, and why?
You know what's funny is my perfect country doesn't exist, because I like this from one, that from the other, and if I could put it all together in one package, I'd have the perfect world. Frankly, I've enjoyed living and the different experiences. I lived a long time in Brazil, so I like Brazil a lot, just because it's the cultural side there really hit home personally for me. But I love my time in Asia. The cultural differences there, and it's just a very intriguing philosophically how things are done there that was enriching in my career. When I lived in Asia, I was in my early 30s, so it was just an incredible experience for me. But I would say I don't choose one, because if I do, then I won't look for all the experiences. I got different things from each country that I went to. And I'll tell you, it's not only countries, within countries. Living in Michigan, living here, living in the Northeast, very different cultures, very different ways of thinking, ways of doing things. That is also a learning experience. So don't just look, when I say internationally, it's really looking outside of your comfort zone.
Is there anything you could change in your career or go back? What would it be?
It's probably I would have taken advantage of some of the opportunities that I was given more. I think that's hindsight is always 20/20. But I think languages I would have liked to learn a few more languages, spend more time learning more languages. I think that's a critical part of learning new cultures. And career-wise, it got just more difficult for me just because of time factors more than anything else. But that's probably one that I would change a lot. I probably would have gotten involved in social activities earlier. I was very busy early on, focusing on my career, and I think they're not mutually exclusive. I think in today's world, there are much more links, and getting involved in those things would also be a little bit more enriching. And I'd probably, if I went back to my college times, I would have enjoyed some of the other things. Once you get into work, you get busy. You get a lot of things. It's music, arts, other activities that you can get that expand your horizons, especially in an environment like this with so many students and a culturally rich university. Take advantage of those things, enjoy them, because these are the times that you develop a lot of your interests in things. It's the soft things. It's not necessarily that I would have invented. It's about the life.
I have a question. You talked about the way to develop critical thinking is usually scientists and engineers develop it, and maybe some of it is going abroad, becoming internationally involved in learning other cultures. Are there other ways that you could suggest someone could develop their critical thinking skills?
I mean, everybody can develop critical thinking skills. My personal opinion, I think engineering and a lot of the sciences give you basic skills because of the analytical thinking structure that you get that is very, very good. But lawyers have to do a lot of critical thinking as they look at their cases. They probably follow a different methodology, but again, it's a very structured thinking. Doctors, you come in, how do I know what you have? They go through a lot of critical thinking. So there's a lot of other careers, other ways that you can develop it. I just think engineering probably is one of the better ones in the sense that gives you a lot of flexibility to pursue a lot of other careers. But I think the most important is awareness. I mean, you don't have to read everything, every newspaper, every magazine. If you try, you'll know nothing. You know, you have to read the right ones, be able to figure out what is relevant information and what is noise. That's my biggest issue. I'll tell you, this is not a communication mechanism. If this is all you use to communicate with people, you're not going to go very far. This is to inform, trade information, data and information quickly. But I get more information than I can handle. I get 400 emails a day. I can't read 400 emails a day. So I don't read a lot of them. If you, for example, send me 15 a day, I probably won't read your emails. If you send me one whenever you have a problem, I know this person, when they're only calling me because they have a problem, probably one of the first ones I read. That's a little bit of critical thinking. So how you communicate with people, how do you make sure that you're getting your point across? You know, and put yourself in other people's shoes. You know, if you're working for someone, what's their day? How are they getting information? You know, oh, but I sent you an email. You're informed. I'm sorry. No. If it's important, give me a call, contact me, make sure that something's going to be happening. Just throwing it out there in the web or the world is not necessarily communication. It's not impactful. It's communication, but it's not impactful.
Could you comment for a moment on who you consider your role models to be?
I've had a lot of different role models at different parts of my career. One of my role models was my father. You know, I was very fortunate that he shared during his career, growing up, a lot of the experiences and things that were going on. So early on in my life, I got exposure to a lot of international business, to a lot of things that were going on in the world. So he was obviously an early mentor or example. My grandfather also was a banker, and he was more into commercial banking, so dealt with a lot of small businesses, talking about what his experiences were in Cuba, working with the butcher and all these small businesses, the difficulties, the opportunities was very, very good to me. And then in business, both at Roman Haas and Dow, I've had different phases, 2 or 3 mentors that have been very helpful for me. People that really focused on the issue of values, of integrity. When I moved to Asia the first time, one of the senior executives sat me down and said, hey, you're going to go into an area that we're just growing, we don't have a lot of presence, and there's a lot of corruption. There is a line. There is, a little bit of gray, but there is a line. Never pass that line. If you pass that line, it's wrong. Don't do business. Those are the people that really impact you because they are telling you things. It's not about money. It's not about just do things for your self-interest. How to maintain. So a lot of my mentors, I think, on the value side, were people that really impacted me and shaped at least my thinking of the world. But there's a lot, as you read through, just people that I don't even know, but have been inspirational. Like I said, Apple Computer. A lot of people are inspired by Jobs. I think for me, it's been looking at a company over these years, seeing a person really innovate because they have a vision was, for me, a type of mentor in the sense of, if they open the door to, anything is possible. I don't need to invent anything. I just need to, through my experiences, if I've seen things that are different, I can take your invention, put it together because you don't see it, but I see it. Because I've been in this part of the world, or I've been in this business, I see the benefit that I can bring, and I bring that together.
David, thank you very much.